Alright guys, so today we are going to be dividing polynomials. So the first thing that we're going to look at is dividing a polynomial by a monomial. So let's look at this up and look at the example. It says 4x to the third plus 8x squared plus 10x, and then we're dividing that all by 2x. So a problem like this, I believe, is easiest just to look at what you have and know that you have to divide every single thing in this parentheses by 2x. So you're doing 4x to the third divided by 2x, 8x to the second divided by 2x, 10x divided by 2x. So if I take 4x to the third and divide it by 2x, I would end up with something like this, right? 4x to the third divided by 2x. And then plus 8x squared divided by 2x plus 10x divided by 2x. And you don't have to write it out like this. I think just for the first time it helps us visualize what we're doing. So if I take 4x to the third divided by 2x, that means I'm taking 4 divided by 2. And I know that 4 divided by 2 is 2. And I'm taking x to the third divided by x. So when I divide, what do I do to my exponents? Well, I subtract them. So 3 minus 1 would be 2. So this would be x squared. Then I look at 8x squared divided by 2x. Well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then x squared divided by x, which would mean 2 minus 1 for my exponents, would just be x to the first power. And then the last one, 10 divided by 2, will give me a positive 5, so it's plus 5. And then an x divided by an x, which means a 1 exponent of 1 minus an exponent of 1 gives me an exponent of 0. So that would just be times 1, which would just give me 5. So this would be my final answer. So go ahead and pause the video and do example 2 on your own. Alright, so now let's look at dividing a polynomial by a binomial. And this time we're going to use long division. Kind of like you did back in elementary school when you first learned to divide. That's what we're going to do here. So it says x squared plus 2x minus 3 divided by x minus 1. So we're going to take x minus 1 and put it on the outside. And then underneath my division bar is going to be x squared plus 2x minus 3. So I look at the x minus 1. What would I have to multiply the x by to get it to be an x squared? Well, it would just have to be an x. So I'm going to put an x over the 2x. And x times x would give me x squared. And x times negative 1 would give me negative 1x. So then I subtract, and I know that x squared minus x squared is nothing. And 2 minus negative 1x would give me 3x. So now I need to bring down this minus 3. And I think, how am I going to get x? What am I going to multiply x by to get it to be 3x? Well, I'm going to multiply it by a positive 3. And then 3 times x would give me 3x. And then 3 times negative 1 would give me negative 3. So if I subtract these things, I know that 3x minus 3x is 0. And then negative 3 minus negative 3 would also be 0. So when I divide, I should get x plus 3. So go ahead and pause the video and try to do example number 4. Alright, so let's look at the next one. Polynomial divided by polynomial divided by binomial. We're still going to use that long division, but this time we're going to have remainders. So let's look at an example 5. I'm going to write it the exact same way. 2x minus 3 with the 2x squared plus 11x minus 9 underneath the division bar. So the first thing I'm going to think is, what am I multiplying 2x by to get it to be 2x squared? Well, I know I'd have to just multiply it by x, because 2x times x is 2x squared. And then I have to do x times negative 3, which is negative 3x. So then I subtract these things. I know that 2x squared times 2x squared is nothing. But 11x minus negative 3x would be 14x. So now I'd bring down my minus 9. And what am I going to multiply 2x by to get it to be 14x? Well, a positive 7, so I put plus 7. So then 2x times 7 gives me 14x, and 7 times negative 3 gives me negative 21. So now I need to subtract, and when I do, I know that 14 minus 14 is 0, but negative 9 minus negative 21 gives me a positive 12. So 12 will be my remainder. The way we write our remainders is we write it as 12 divided by this up here. So my answer, after I do this division, is x plus 7 plus 12 over 2x minus 3. So go ahead and try example 6 on your own. All right, so let's look at a polynomial divided by a binomial using synthetic division. So we're still dividing, we're still doing the same steps. This is just another way to use to do a division problem. So synthetic division, we look at this part right here, and we're just going to use numbers and no letters. So we're not going to use the x cubes and the x squares until the end. So what we do is we take x plus 5 and we change the sign of 5. So it was a positive 5, and now I'm going to change it to a negative 5. And then we draw a little backwards L shape around it. Then we're going to take all of the coefficients to our polynomial. So x3 has an exponent of 1, x squared has an exponent of 2, x has an exponent of negative 13, and then 10 is by itself. And then I draw a little line down here. So the way synthetic division works is you take whatever your first term is and bring it down below below my line. So it'd just be a 1. And then I take this number and multiply it times negative 5. So 1 times negative 5 would be negative 5. And then I put that underneath my second number. And when I do that, I add those together. What is 2 plus negative 5? It's negative 3. So then I take negative 3 times negative 5. Well, that's positive 15, so it goes right here. And then I say negative 3 plus 15 gives me a positive 2. So now I take 2 and multiply it times negative 5. Well, 2 times negative 5 is 10. So this would be a negative 10. So this would be negative 10. So when I add these two together, I get 0. So this would be our remainder if we had one. But in this case, we don't, because it's just a 0. So when I go ahead and write this equation, I started at x3, which is this one originally. So when I have my answer, it's going to be an x squared. So this would be 1x squared minus 3x plus 2. Now, if this had a remainder, if this had been a 4 or a 7 or a 9 instead of a 0, I would write that over x plus 5. That would be like plus 7x plus 5. But this would be my final answer. So go ahead and try example 8. So those are 4 different ways that you can divide polynomials.